Multiplying polynomials. When multiplying two binomials, which each binomial, remember, has two terms, you're going to use the FOIL method where you could find the sum of the products. So f, as you see here, will be your first term. You're going to multiply your first term of each of the binomial together, which gives you x times x gives you x squared. Remember, when you're multiplying exponents, you're going to add them. Second, you're going to have your outer. Your outer is going to be your first term from the first binomial to the last part of your second binomial. So if you notice, it's kind of both outside. So you have x times 2 gives you 2x. Then you're going to have your inner. So the two ones next to each other are the in, which in this case is 1 times x gives you x. And then finally, we're going to do the last. The last two terms of each of your binomial, which is 1 times 2 gives you positive 2. When you add these all together, you're going to have x squared, 2x plus x plus 2. You're only going to combine your like terms. Remember, you cannot combine any terms that are not alike. So your exponents have to be the same when adding them. X squared cannot be added to nothing else, so you just move it over. 2x plus x, you could add those two. Remember, there's an imaginary one here, so it becomes 2x plus 1x gives you 3x, and then 2. These are three different terms, and they are in a trinomial example. So always recall, a binomial is going to be only have one term. A binomial will have two terms. A trinomial has three terms. Okay? Three terms. 1, 2, and 2 terms. We're right now working on when multiplying two binomials, we use the FOIL method. So remember, FOIL, first, outer, inner, and last. So this example, we have 4 examples of using the FOIL method. In number 1, we're going to have m minus 3 times n minus 7. Remember, this set is separated by multiplication. So the first one is what? F, correct? Remember, we're doing FOIL. So F is going to be m times m, which gives me x squared. Now we're going to have O, which is the outer, m times negative 7. Keep the front signs with you. So m times negative 7 gives me negative 7m. Now we're going to have our I, which is negative 3 times m gives me negative 3m. And then finally we have our last, which is negative 3 times negative 7 gives me positive 21. The only like terms that I could combine here are these, right? Because they have the same degree. So we're going to be left with m squared, negative 7 minus 3m gives me negative 10m plus 21. And that's your answer. Number 2, we have x minus 4 times x plus 2, correct? So our first one is going to be f, which is x times x gives me x squared. Now we have our outer, which is x times 2 gives me 2x. Then we have negative 4 times x, negative 4x. And then finally our last, which is negative 4 times 2 gives me negative 8. I could combine the two like terms in the middle, which gives me x squared minus 2x minus 8 is your answer. Number 3, we have 2u plus half times u minus 3 to the 3 over 2. Our f is going to be 2u times u gives me 2u squared. My outer is going to be 2u times negative 3 over 2, which gives me 2 times negative 3, negative 6, and negative 6 divided by 2 gives me negative 3u. Then we have our inner. Half times u is just positive half u. And then finally our last, which is half times negative 3 over 2, that gives me negative 3/4. I can now combine my 2u, which gives me negative 3u plus half is going to be 2u minus 5 over 2. U minus 3/4. Number 4, we have n plus 2 times n squared plus 3. F is going to be first, which gives me n times n squared, gives me n cubed. Our outer is going to be n times 3 gives me 3n. My inner is going to be 2 times n squared gives me 2n squared. And finally, last is going to be 2 times 3, which gives me positive 6. There's nothing here I could combine. Only thing is I need to write it in standard form. Okay, standard form, which is going to be your highest degree to your lowest. In this case, it's going to be n3 is my highest, not n3, n cubed. Second is positive 2n squared, which is the second degree, plus 3n plus 6. And that's your answer. Multiplying binomials and trinomials. Here we could see we have a binomial and this is a trinomial. One way that you can multiply this is going to be where you distribute my binomial, each term in my binomial to the trinomial. So if you know my first term in my binomial is x. So I'm going to have x times, I'll rewrite my trinomials, which is x times x squared minus 3x minus 2. Let me erase this right here so I could have space. Now I'm going to have my 5 is positive 5. My second term is positive 5. And rewrite my trinomial again, which I'm going to multiply it, correct? X squared minus 3x minus 2. I'm going to distribute, which I'm going to have x times x squared gives me x cubed. X times negative 3x gives me negative 3x squared. And x times negative 2 gives me negative 2x. Now I have the 5. Positive 5 times 5 times x squared gives me, why is this not right? There you go. Positive 5x squared, and then 5 times negative 3x gives me negative 15x. And finally, 5 times negative 2 gives me negative 10. Now here I'm going to see anything that I could combine and also write it in what? Standard form, the highest degree to the lowest. In this case, I have x cubed. I'm done with the x cubed. My second ones are what? The x squared, which is negative 3. Remember the sign in front. Plus 5x squared gives me plus 2x squared. Done with this one here. My next degree is negative 2x minus 15x, which gives me negative 17x. Done with that. Negative 10 is on its own, which is left. Just bring it down, minus 10. And that's your answer in standard form, from highest degree to the lowest. Now, another way that we could multiply our binomial and our trinomial is just think of distributing right from the actual question. So that means that x I'm going to give to x squared, x to 5x, and x to 8, which gives me x times x squared gives me x cubed, x times 5x gives me 5x squared, and x times 8 gives me positive 8x. Now, I finished with that first term, correct? The second term, I could continue multiplying. 1 times x squared gives me x squared, and 1 times 5x gives me positive 5x, and 1 times 8 gives me positive 8. I could still combine from here. Remember, in standard form, from the highest degree to the lowest. So my highest degree here is x cubed. My second highest are my squares, which that gives me 5x squared plus x squared plus 6x squared. Then I have 8x plus 5x gives me 13x, and I'm left with 8 by its own. And that's my answer. I can form the same thing on number 6, which I'm going to have n times n squared, which gives me n cubed. N times negative 2n gives me negative 2n squared. N times 4 gives me positive 4n. Negative 3 times n squared gives me negative 3n squared. Negative 3 times negative 2n is going to be positive 6n. So negative and negative becomes positive, then n. And negative 3 times 4, negative 12. Combine your like terms, which and write them in standard form. My highest degree is n cubed. My next second highest is going to be the squares. Negative 2n squared minus 3n squared gives me negative 5n squared. I've already written those. And next I have this third highest degree, which is 4n plus 6n gives me 10n. And finally I'm left with the negative 12. Just bring it down, minus 12. Here we have multiplying binomial using the distributive properties. Remember, you're going to get your first binomial. You get your first binomial, and this is a here, which is x plus 2 times x plus 5. My first binomial is x plus 2. So each term of there, I'm going to give to my second binomial, which will be x times x plus 5. So I'm done with that one, and now I'm going to have plus 2 for the second term times x plus 5. Distribute, what I'm going to have is x squared plus 5x plus 2x plus 10. Combine your like terms, which is my two middle ones, which is x squared plus 7x plus 10. B, I have x plus 3 times x minus 4. My first term is x for my first binomial times x minus 4. And my second term is plus 3 times x minus 4. Distribute, which I'm left with x squared minus 4x plus 3x minus 12. Combine your terms, left with x squared minus x negative 4 plus 3 gives me negative 1. So I'm just going to write negative x minus 12.